section, and it was the following. It said, "Burp, Linux sucks," and it was by the person of the same name on Twitter as he had on my site when he left a remark. And after a little bit of investigation, I found somebody sharing the same name in the same picture, apparently. And it turns out, at the moment, on the face of it, to be another Microsoft employee promoting Microsoft products on my site. Now, normally this is not really a story. I think Roy's covered quite a few times on my site before where I've exposed Microsoft employees or Microsoft MVPs coming from an angle of pretending to be an independent view, giving their opinion on great Microsoft products, in quotes, and then it transpires that they have a connection to Microsoft. And I always make the statement that it appears that the only advocacy of Microsoft products are people that have a vested interest in promoting Microsoft products. There might be employees, there might be people who've been gifted by Microsoft, or there might just be MVPs. So that's what I'm currently looking at the moment, and it's got quite interesting.
Just want to introduce a small point. Is Microsoft doesn't usually employ people who are dedicated to working on so-called PR or perception management, as they call it. They usually have external agencies, and I have a good listing and incidents of the name of the agencies that do that. So they provide a service to Microsoft that's peripheral. So they can sell another Microsoft employee. Technically, that's true, but they are being paid by Microsoft through the agency.
That's very true. I mean, the point I bring out in all these occasions when it's you have a comment that's connected with a Microsoft employee is that for me, and in my experience, any time I see advocacy of Microsoft products is when it's somebody who's connected to Microsoft. Now, you can argue that a Microsoft employee would have a vested interest in Microsoft doing well because, of course, they're employed by Microsoft, and considering the market, if the market went badly for Microsoft and they didn't sell their products, then they wouldn't have a job. So I don't know whether this is some sort of unwritten rule within the Microsoft work ethic, whether this person isn't a Microsoft employee at all, and this is just all a great coincidence, which I'm going to present the evidence on my site, including a screen grab of the LinkedIn account, which was subsequently deleted when I challenged him on Twitter. And people can decide for themselves. For me, it's just another example of a shady advocacy of a product without somebody standing behind their own identity. I think I've said before, myself, Roy and Gordon, regardless of whether you agree with what we say, and we all have different views, we stand by what we say, and we don't hide behind a mask or another handle, or we don't hide what we are and who we are. So people can make up their own minds as to whether they agree with us or agree with none of us. So that's something I'm working on at the moment. Sorry, Gordon.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's another type of people who advocate, but I mean, the phones, Windows Phone thing's a little bit different. I can't see this applying to there. But when it comes to like Windows, the operating system, the desktop or a laptop or whatever, and I can see actual people who are not employed by Microsoft, but they do advocate Windows, and the reason for that is because they've spent years building up knowledge of administrator knowledge of all the different quirks in Windows, how to get in and delete stuff from the registry, and how to restore and how to install, and they've got all this knowledge of all these little applications and tricks on how to get around about all the quirks that Microsoft put in Windows intentionally and by incompetence. So they've got this sort of super user knowledge, and the last thing they want to do is, I mean, I've shown some people that have those, they are power users on Windows, and I've shown them Linux, and the first thing that goes through their head is, if I switch to Linux, I've got to learn all of that all over again. I'm back at the stage. Yeah, I'm back at the stage of being a lowly user who they've spent years looking down on. You know, they're looking about and they don't know where the start button is, the equivalent of the start button is on Linux, because it's a whole new thing to them. So it's a sort of vested interest for them that people are on Windows, because that allows them to be the big honcho, essentially, and they have to retrain if they switch to something else. So it's anything to keep that status quo and to keep their status within that. So they're not employed by Microsoft, not necessarily, although they might work at a PC store repairing Windows. And if everyone switched over to Linux, they would be forced to retrain and they would have no choice but to retrain, and that puts them back to the stage of, I'm a user again. So that's another thing, but that really applies to long-established platforms like Windows, rather than something that's newly been reinvented like the Windows Phone 7.
I mean,
A quick final thing there is, as far as showing the phone to someone and them saying, "Oh, that's amazing," I could imagine that if I showed my mum and dad a Windows Phone 7, they would think it's amazing as well, because they've never seen a smartphone.
Mm.
They've never seen
Yeah,
an Android. They've never seen an iPhone. They've no idea what the competition is. The last they've seen was an old Nokia push button thing that I used to have that I gave them. So that is everyone's context. But anyone who is even remotely interested in smartphones, there's no way that they could ever be impressed with Windows Phone 7.
well, like I say, I mean, you're spot on, Gordon. There's plenty of people, certainly for the Windows platform, and I know people myself who wouldn't switch, and that's not even because they come from a background of expertise. It's purely because they've got used to their packages, they've got used to the way it's set up, and they swear by XP, and you're not going to shift them off that no matter what you say. And those type of people do exist, and I know some of them. I mean, like I say, this whole incident on my site, it all sort of tied in with the Twitter account. The same person was obviously promoting Windows Phone 7 on his Twitter account as well, which made me then look at further research as to who it was. But as I say, it might not even be a Microsoft employee at all. That's why obviously I'll be putting the article up on the site, and people can make their own judgment call from the evidence that I provide. This could just be a case of mistaken identity. So that'll be up to the readers of my site to decide. But if I could just end that on another comment in regards to Windows Phone 7, which sort of agrees with everything that myself, Roy and Gordon have said over the past few episodes in regards to the Phone 7 from Microsoft. And this comment comes from PC Pro recently over a Windows Phone 7 review, and it says, quote, Windows Phone 7 can't yet hold a candle to iOS or Android for polish or content. And I think that really says it all. I don't think Windows 7 Phone 7 is a ready state for the market. I don't think it has the features that consumers want. I don't think it's got the developer support that will back up the users and their desire for applications and games and etc. etc. And I don't think it's got the market interest either. I certainly have never seen an example of market interest. I don't know if you can correct me, Gordon or Roy, as to people demanding it, but I've certainly seen no examples of it whatsoever.
What Microsoft have seen is they see the walled garden approach of Apple. They see how Apple can get away with so much control at all different levels. Not only that, as they can charge a fortune for the privilege, and people are queuing up to be treated the way that Apple treat them. And that's from...
They don't have so many people queuing up. They only have a market share above 4% on the desktop, as far as I know.
Yeah.
You can look at the numbers, because they actually sell, appliances, so they can count these things. And as far as phones are concerned, I think that Microsoft kind of commends Apple. They're kind of jealous, but also some people treat Apple as kind of like the counterculture in some sense, which is kind of strange because they treat it as indifferent. Most people use Windows, and they feel very comfortable using something from Apple. They have a very, very strong brand, especially because of the iPod, which started about almost a decade ago.
Well, Apple have the premium brand value to them. People expect to pay a lot more for Apple products. I think somewhere like 40% over the price. They expect that people perceive that they're getting excellent value for money, even although they're paying an awful lot more for it, and they're losing an awful lot of control. But people accept that as being, it's in our best interest that we don't have access to that. So I think Microsoft see that whole walled garden approach, that whole premium brand thing that Apple have got going on, the fact that people are queuing up to actually throw money at Apple for these products, and Microsoft say we're desperate for that. But they're not the trendy company. No one likes. I mean, Microsoft, the brand that people associate with Microsoft is that's this hell of a thing that they're having to sit and use at work or at school or something, and it's something that doesn't always crash, but applications crash and have to reboot all the time and have to get pop-ups for all sorts of things and new stuff appearing on their desktop. It's something they have to fight with every day for 7-8 hours a day at work. And then when they come home, invariably their PC